Hi everyone, Jennifer Blevins-Smith with Integral Clinic Solutions, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Navigating the Business of Medicine. Today I want to talk about inventory tracking in your practice. Whether you have to do it manually, hopefully you don't, or you have software that will assist, tracking your inventory, whether it comes to the medications that you keep on hand, your supplies, your reusables, and your disposable supplies, it's very important to be tracking this information, not only for financial and tax purposes, but also to help you with budgeting and for patient safety. So we're going to review that in this video. Tracking your inventory can be a very cumbersome process, but hopefully you have something set up, whether it's in your EMR system that assists with some of this or all of this, or you purchase different software that will help you with the tracking, but making sure that you're using whatever you have to its fullest ability. And that means making sure that everything is entered in and maintained on an ongoing basis. The data that's entered should be very detailed, and it should also include what you paid for the supply or the item. Now you can separate these by different categories, which I encourage, and hopefully if you have a good software, it will do it for you. But if you're in a startup or you're thinking about starting your own practice or assisting someone with a startup, you want to make sure that you are recording everything that's purchased for the practice. So that includes your capital items, your furniture, your technology like computers, printers, scanners. You want to make sure you're recording everything: refrigerators, freezers, chairs, desks, everything like that. And those are going to be items that most likely you're not going to have to record again unless you're replacing something that's older at some future date or you're adding more to your practice. Then you're going to have the items that are reusable, right? Like your instruments that maybe you're going to use in your own autoclave that you purchase, and you're going to sterilize them yourself in-house. Then you're going to have items that are throwaway, disposable, that you're going to have to be constantly buying and replacing. And then you're going to have like your medications, which I would also keep separate, even though those are items that you would be reordering or ordering often, they should be in their own category. You want to make sure it's very detailed: quantities, manufacturer, the costs, like I said, any expiration dates, super important, because yes, some items, supplies do have expiration dates, and not just medications or things that you administer to patients. You want to make sure that you are tracking all of this, because if something expires, you need to make sure you're pulling it and not giving it or using it, and that you put in an expired category, because you might be able to write that off on your taxes, or at least be able to give it to your CPA and they can help guide you on how to handle that type of situation. So keeping track of your expireds is always a good idea. The vaccines should be kept separate than the medications, because vaccines, although they, I guess, could be considered medications, they're vaccines or immunizations. So those should also be separate. And everything has a lot number associated to it. And the reason the lot number is significant or could be significant is if there is a recall on something. And you want to make sure that if you have used it on a patient and there's a recall, you can run some kind of report out of whatever software you're using and be able to identify which patients received that item or those items. That is the patient safety part. That is very important. If you are giving medications, especially, or putting implants in people, things that are going into people's bodies, it's even more important that you're tracking the expiration and lot numbers, although it is nice to do it for everything. I know this sounds really overwhelming at first, and like I said, the bulk of stuff is going to be recorded when you initially open and get started, and then you can keep up on it as you do orders. The nice thing is that wherever you order your items from, like as far as medical supplies, medications, vaccines, they often will have some kind of documentation that they will send to you, and you'll be able to use that. But at the same time, you also need to do it internally by doing your own due diligence and not relying on that. The information that you get from this not only helps you kind of see how much money you've spent in different categories and for budgeting for next year, but it will also give you kind of an idea of what you ordered that maybe wasn't necessary, that you didn't really need to order, and you've kind of, quote, wasted money or maybe purchased it a little sooner than you should have. People make mistakes, but it's learning from this information so that you don't do it the same next year or upcoming, that you don't order as many whatever it is that ends up expiring before you can use it, or you haven't used any of it so you don't order any more of it. That's something that used to be one of my biggest pet peeves is I would see my medical assistant ordering stuff that we already had on hand, but because we had a very manual system and we had to check everything with our eyes, if someone unloaded the last delivery and she wasn't aware that it was received and the person putting it away didn't put it where it's expected to be put in the office for storage, and you go to look there and you don't see it, you order more and then you end up finding the other inventory somewhere else, and then you have this excess amount. So that's why the tracking system, the software, if you can use it, would be very helpful, because as it gets used, hopefully you scan it, it removes it from your inventory, and you have a live tracking. Again, you would have to establish a very strict and thorough workflow in this process. You would need to make sure that somebody is always checking it, that your staff is scanning stuff out as they're using it or they're restocking shelves. Like, let's say you have table paper and you have some cases in the back, and when they need to grab more, they pull it, they scan it, they put a designated spot where people pull from that first, and then you resupply it at that spot. So you would have the live inventory, and then they're not scanning every time they're grabbing a roll, they're only scanning it as they're opening the new case. You can establish stuff like that, and it might seem like a lot of extra work at first, but it really literally pays off in the long run. So being sure that you're thorough and meticulous about entering everything into the system, scanning it in real time when things get used to have accurate, up-to-date live inventory counts at all times, and then the prices so that you can run reports for different time frames to see how much you've used of certain things, how much money has gone towards it, etc. I could go on and on and on talking about this subject because it's something where a lot of people underestimate how much money can get wasted in a business, any business, not just a medical business, with their inventory. Things going expired, buying things that they don't need right away because of what I talked about, not knowing you already have some on hand, but it's not in a place as expected, all of those situations. So making sure that everything is accounted for. There should be somebody overseeing the purchasing process that's responsible for entering and checking and ordering, but then there should be somebody overseeing them to make sure that they're doing their job correctly and not ordering unnecessary items, that they're ordering a affordable option instead of maybe the most expensive. They can go one step down. It doesn't affect any patient care or anything, which a doctor or a clinician should also be overseeing those situations to make sure that the cheaper alternative is still sufficient for what's needed. But, sometimes buying the medical supply company's brand, just like at the grocery store, is a little cheaper than buying the name brand. So, these are all the things that need to be overseen, that need to be considered, and needs to have a process. So having those checks and balances, people overseeing other people, and being able to track is just a good idea, especially when funds are tight and you also need to budget for the following year. It comes in very handy. If you have any questions or comments about inventory tracking, I would love to hear from you. Smash the thumbs up button if today's video was helpful. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please share this video with anybody whom you feel would benefit. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.